3 years ago, they stole $160 million. Now, the only thing between their old enemy and their new one is an ocean. Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review, and this movie review is going to be for a film that I had reviewed yesterday, or this weekend, and it's for the first installment of a heist trilogy that I'm currently reviewing. It is the sequel to a film from 2001, and this movie was released 3 years later in 2004, and that is 2004's Ocean's 12, aka the most hated of the franchise. Apparently, according to a lot of people. And personally, I kind of don't agree with that. Or we'll get to that in a bit, but what's the plot of this movie? Well, y'all remember how in the first one, they pulled off one of the biggest heists ever, and now they have another job to complete to kind of make up as punishment. The Ocean's 11 group, which consists of Danny Ocean, Rusty Ryan, Linus Caldwell, and others, all thought they would be able to enjoy their money, but an old enemy of theirs has other plans. Terry Benedict is now wanting revenge for what happened for getting robbed, and he wants them all that money back. So, as punishment, they now have to do another heist to get all the money they spent back to Terry, or risk being either killed or thrown in jail. So, but since they're well known in America, they have to go to Europe. Because America now knows who they are. They are known all over America, so they have no choice but to flee. So how are they going to get all that money back? By pulling off another heist in Europe. So yeah, this movie was obviously announced when Ocean's 11 proved to be a big success at the box office. And so another one was obviously planned. The script would have to be reworked when Julia Roberts learned she was pregnant with twins. The film would be shot in 2004 in Atlantic City, New Jersey, St. Petersburg, Florida, and in Las Vegas at the Bellagio Hotel. Filming would even take place in Chicago, Amsterdam, Paris, Monte Carlo, Lake Como, Rome, and Casamarga del Golfo, and Sicily. Production spent 3 weeks in the Netherlands. Scenes were filmed in Cannes, the Hotel Pulitzer, Harlem Railway Station, and the Hague City Hall. In Paris, scenes were shot at the Sorbonne, the Australian Embassy, and the Gare du Nord. Afterwards, filming moved to Italy. The Monte Carlo Casino and the Villa Erba also served as filming locations. The film would then go on to be released in the United States on December 10, 2004. Unlike the first one, which received critical acclaim, this one received mixed reviews from critics and grossed slightly less money, with $362 million worldwide, but became the 10th highest grossing film in 2004. So obviously, it was still followed by another sequel titled Ocean's 13, which would be released 3 years after this in 2007, with Soderbergh and most of the cast returning. Now, as for my reaction, well, I know a lot of people apparently hate this movie. As for me personally, I never understood the hate for this one or how really hated by fans it was. I mean, it is the weakest of the original 3 movies to me for sure, but I always found this one very underrated. Like, this one kind of served a good purpose to the story. This one was kind of needed if you think about it. Like, it is one of those sequels that kind of somewhat undoes the happy ending, but they do it in a more realistic way because this was gonna happen one way or another. Like, the ending of 11 literally sets this movie up because the final shot of 11 was Danny, Tess driving away, and Terry's bodyguards followed them because they pretty much already had plans to get payback on Danny in the game. So in a way, the ending of 11 literally set up a sequel, so this movie was going to happen if we wanted it or not. Like, this kind of needed to happen. Like, the story was not over yet. And it's kind of a good little second installment. It's a good way to pick up where the first one left off, where Terry finally finds them and threatens to put them in jail or murder them if they don't give him his money back. So, in this one, they kind of deal with the consequences of the heist, so I really liked what they did here. They didn't just say, let's rob more casinos again. They didn't rehash the story. They didn't go like The Hangover 2. Or Ghostbusters 2. They actually found a good way to continue the story here. So yeah, people are going to hate me for saying this, but I didn't think it was that bad. It's not as good as the first one, but I still enjoyed it. There are some awkward moments of still dialogue and awkward pauses, and at times the plot can be hard to understand, and there was way too much dialogue that really just builds up to nothing, but there were still some moments I found fun. The moments of meta-humor and self-awareness toward the second half of the film made me laugh. There's still some good action moments, but there's still quite a few bad qualities I have with the sequel, so let's get to the bad qualities first. If this movie has a downside, and many viewers here think it does, I think it tries to be ambitious to a fault, trying to top its predecessor, Ocean's 11. There was no more evident than in the gimmick to raise the level of a building by 3 inches using some underwater hydraulic contraptions. I couldn't really follow the logistics of that escapee, much less think it was festival at all, but the sheer idiocy of the idea sounding compelling as all get out. But come on, Linus Kelbel's idea for a looky-loo and a bundle of joy was brilliant. Who else would have come up with the idea of Julia Roberts impersonating Julia Roberts in a movie? Like, it's almost as good as, like, Bruce Campbell portraying Elvis Presley and impersonates Elvis Presley impersonator 2002's Bubble Hotep, which I haven't seen. But apparently it happens there. Now it is a nice little setup where he tracks down the whole gang, but the introduction can be also a little confusing. I mean, we never really found out how Andy Garcia found all the 11 members of the heist or tracked them down. Like, I kind of would have rather the movie opened up with him first, figuring out all the addresses, Googling their IP addresses, tracking them all down. And it started off with that. Now that would have made more sense, in a way. Because this movie has a nice concept here, Terry actually now wants them to get more money back from him. He has them do another heist so that they don't go to jail or press charges against them for what happened in the first film. And then there's also Catherine looking for her father. I feel like this was just randomly added to make the movie longer. Kind of seemed like everything was rushed into the movie. And even though Terry Benedict's the antagonist of this movie, he's hardly given screen time apart from some at the beginning and some at the end. And it's kind of robbed of a really menacing bad guy, even though our heroes are in fact kind of the villains themselves, but there's not really any protagonist or antagonist in this franchise, which is pretty creative. With this in mind, I kind of cannot help but feel that the trailer is also kind of misleading, as it wrongly portrays Benedict to be a major protagonist in his sequel, or he's just kind of here to flesh out the plot. Most of the cast in the first film seems to be there only to time with Ocean's 11, as Ellie Gold hardly says a thing, neither does Carl Renner, and Bernie Mac spends the majority of the movie in a Dutch prison and is hardly seen. Then you got Clooney and Pitt. They kind of don't seem as cool or as smart as they were in the first movie, and the whole team kind of show themselves to be nothing more than frightened children afraid of the boogeyman, when confronted with their nemesis, to whom they owe nearly $200 million. So contrast from the who cares who we're stealing from type of guys were introduced in a couple of years ago. And that's kind of where the disappointment of the movie comes in. Like, you expect them to be less afraid, but also it does kind of work here because technically they're threatened to go to prison and have their lives have their happy endings ruined if they don't get this job done. So the stakes are pretty high for them in this one. But then you also got Catherine Zeta-Jones, who's basically this Interpol type of cop who conveniently used to have an affair with Pitt's character, and for the first time in ages, she doesn't adopt a phony American accent, which subsequently makes this one of her less annoying roles alongside The Mask of Zorro. And we also have a new character in this movie called Night Fox, who's played by Vincent Cassel, who tries to steal this fabric egg by somersaults, backflipping, and dancing over the laser floor centers, just like, I mean, it's nice to add a little humor to the story, but it just, like, a laser dance sequence just kind of felt out of place for an Ocean's movie. And, this is kind of like, this trilogy kind of goes like Indiana Jones. Like, there was people who didn't like Ocean's 12, and then they made Ocean's 13 as a makeup movie. Kind of like with Indiana Jones, where at the time, people thought Temple of Doom was an insult and a joke. So, and then Last Crusade came up and made up for that. But Temple of Doom is better praised now, and it's actually liked by people. Well, when it first came out, it was kind of hated by people, actually, so... When it first came out anyways, but now it's not. But of course, we know with Indiana Jones, they're gonna make it shittier by making Indy 5 for the trilogy of Part 4, which is probably going to be even worse. Anyway, but, well, despite the no Las Vegas backdrop of the normality of the original, Ocean's 12 does manage to capture the same crew with pinpoint accuracy on the individual characters, and the dialogue is still rich and hilarious. I always still love George Clooney as Danny Ocean in this, and Brad Pitt, like, together, whether this is the original or not, they certainly deliver in the fun in this film, in the original, and in the original. Now, the fun chemistry is still there, I will say that. It just doesn't seem as creative here this time around. And another thing I do like about this movie, I really like this movie even features a cameo of Bruce Willis playing himself. I do kind of wish they made it last a bit longer, but it was still cool to see him cameo as himself in this movie. In all, the superb acting and cinematic effects are overshadowed by the plot. I mean, it is intricate, summertime and edge of your seat, but therein lies the problem. Like, twist after twist upon twist leaves the average viewer dumbfounded. Like, only those possessing Einstein-like intelligence can grasp such plot specifics. Like, for those fitting the category, like, it is an excellent movie. For less fortunate, however, some might find it better to just watch the first one and leave it at that. And you kind of wonder in this movie, who's taking advantage of who? Whereas 11 leaves us with a clear victor with the spoils. 12 kind of leaves you in suspense. Not the suspense scene at the end of the former, but a spiceful, incomplete suspense. Like, near the end of the movie, they finally all do the whole gang get busted and put in jail and are about to be deported back, but then Matt Damon's character's mother comes in and just kind of bails them out, and there's no really stakes felt there. Like, that's just it. They just get released. She just shows up, gets them all released, and they complete the heist. Like, I kind of wish there was a little more there. I kind of wish they kind of tried to figure out an escape plan here, and not just kind of some cheap, hey, this is my character's mother, and she just bails them out. Like, there's not really anything there. Like, you have the whole gang finally going to prison here, and you could have made this sequence a little more interesting where they try to figure out an escape, where they kind of escape themselves, and I feel like it kind of would have been better had more stakes here, because, like, once again, this sequel has a good premise. They gotta rob to save their lives from the consequences of the first film. But they could have added a little more stakes here, like. But nonetheless, the all-star cast of actors boost the movie's star quality. Bruce Willis's cameo is delightful, and special Dahmer and Tundra cameo Julia Roberts, Clooney and Pitt are excellent, and the rest of the cast hold up to the end quite well. But in the end, it is unfortunate that the plot and its twists are simply incomprehensible to many of the second, even third subsequent attempt to understand it. But in the end, Ocean's 12 is the weakest follow-up and the weakest of the original 3 movies, but I still personally am one of the few people that likes it and still think it's a lot of fun and is still a good continuation from where the first one left off. I think it's a story that deserves some decently better praise because this movie had a really nice concept for a sequel. But however, when it comes to my recommendation, I'd recommend you just kind of stream this one online since it is still the weakest of the franchise. Or just skip to 13 if you're not too interested in checking this one out. Anyway, that's it for my review of Ocean's 12. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Ocean's 12, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you want to see Danny and the gang take their heist overseas for their second round, then I would recommend just streaming this one online to save yourself some money and time. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Ocean's 12, I'm going to give Ocean's 12 a 7 out of 10. And there we go. That pretty much wraps up my review for Ocean's 12. And now I gotta review Ocean's 13, which is definitely better than this movie. Probably my second favorite of the franchise. And then I gotta review Ocean's 8, which is the true weakest, but still better than certain other spin-offs. Until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like and subscribe to Don G. Corleone.